Hi, Taurus Sun and Rising. Welcome to your March 2022 Astral Update. It's Raina here. I have Taurus Rising, so when I look at these forecasts, I have a special vested interest in what's going on. I'm a late degree, so if you're a late degree, sometimes the Gemini forecasts can be more accurate. Remember that this is a general forecast, and your chart is unique to you. So, where this falls, some of these placements may fall in different houses than I state. I remember when I first found out about that from another astrologer who made that uh, pronouncement on their channel, and I was like, oh man, I was so disillusioned for about a day, and then I kind of got over it because you can still see what is happening, even if it's not exactly in the time frame of the month in question, because these transits are passing through all of these houses, and they will most likely land in your neck of the woods sooner rather than later. And in some cases, they've already happened, and you have experienced this, and you can relate to what has happened. So the main signs that are experiencing more than one transit are Aquarius and Pisces this month. And, probably like you could say that about every month, but there's additional things going on with these two particular signs that makes it that much more important and interesting as well. So for you, the 11th house is the house of Pisces. And this is a great place for somebody to have the sign of Pisces in because it's already a very idealistic place. This is Aquarius's house. This is the house of humanity. So when we are dreaming big and we're dreaming about, saving the world or this ideal type of world where everybody is happy and they have what they need. That's kind of what the 11th house represents. It's hopes and wishes in general that you have, or long range goals, I've also heard it called, which I think is a good way of putting it. But I like to say that it can be the goals apart from your work, because obviously those things are associated with the 10th house, in a lot of ways. So those other kinds of goals that you might have. And so anyway, and the other thing too is that the 11th house can be the house of gains. And so that can have to do with financial abundance coming from your career. So we have a new moon here on the 2nd of the month at 12 degrees of Pisces. And this can speak to new developments, maybe new goals that you dream up for yourself. And, sometimes I go, that's kind of boring. Like, okay, new goals, but that's, what good is that? And I can tell you that, by the way, this can also have to do with the internet. So any new developments, if you have been wanting to get your stuff together online, maybe you have a small business and you haven't really kept up with things, and you have to organize your website or begin a website, something like that, then that's a great time for it. But what I was trying to say is that I used to think, oh, it's boring. But when you think about it, one of the things that can happen is if you come up with an idea that you really want to implement, it can light you on fire. Like when I came up with the idea of doing my channel, and that was, gosh, it's going to be 8 years. Pretty soon in the summer it'll be 8 years. And that was like 2014, I came up with the idea of it. And that idea carried me through about 9 more months before I actually birthed my business and my online readings, because I realized that it wasn't as easy as it looked. But during that time, it was like I was in a whole different zone because I was in the zone of anticipation. I was excited about the potential for this. And, sometimes you get overexcited, sometimes you get, you might get your hopes up. So I'm not saying that everything that you get excited about can pan out, but you have that the creative juices are flowing, and you just have this kind of a joy for life. And you think about how many people are going through the motions, and you realize how valuable that is. So don't think that that's nothing, because it's not. And the next day, there's going to be a conjunction between Mars and Venus, divine lovers. And this is actually happening in the ninth house. And this is a trine to you. It's at a late degree. So especially if you're the last, 10 degrees of the sign, this will be more appropriate for you. Or between, I should say, 10 and 17, or, less, whatever. I'm not going to get cute about it. But, trine, and that's very nice because it's an earth element, so there can be some tangible results from it. And it's in the ninth house, which is the house of publishing. It's the God house. It's so any endeavors that you start, since this is on the heels of the new moon, if you start any endeavors in these areas, they can bear great fruit because Venus is very fertile. In the tarot, in the major arcana, Venus is connected to the Empress card. So the Empress is pregnant. The Empress is very creative, and that's how you may feel yourself, and you're birthing something. This is great for travel, plans gelling. And then on the 6th, again, we have Mars and Venus joining forces. When I say that, I'm saying they're in the same degree because they're going to be together in the same house, or they have been at different times, but this is when they are forming conjunction. But they're both entering Aquarius on the 6th in your 10th house of career. So that is very interesting because Mars in the 10th house can be, if I take it separately, apart from the conjunction, someone who's really turning on their ambition. But Venus is there to kind of keep Mars in check so that Mars isn't overdoing it. If you just had Mars transiting the 10th house, you might get in some kind of an ego clash with an authority figure because that's what the 10th house can represent in addition to your career. And you think about it, people in positions of authority, if you work for somebody else, would obviously be your boss. So, or other people in that capacity that you are kind of getting like confident, but maybe overconfident and trying to assert yourself in a very unskilled way that actually hurts you rather than helps you. So that's more of what I would say, the Mars by itself. With Venus in conjunction, you have the what do you call it? The charm of Venus, and also the harmony that Venus lends herself to. And so this can be really good for career, I think, because there's confidence and there's charm. And it's in this house where you may, need that to open doors, The career versus the job, which is the 6th house. 6th house, it's kind of like the daily grind. And, maybe it's a job instead of a career. The 10th house is that career. It's also your public reputation, so that with Venus, it can be looking good. And Mercury has already been in this house. And now on the 9th, Mercury goes into the 11th house. And that is the house of hopes and wishes. One thing that I think I didn't mention is that you have Neptune in this house, Taurus, and Neptune has been here for the past 10 years. So if you think back to 2012, it's possible that that might have been when you got into the law of attraction, or had some kind of a goal that maybe even in some cases is kind of fanciful, is a little bit off the wall. The 11th house being Aquarius's house, it might be something a little bit out of the box. But if you've been stoking these dreams, Neptune has been helping that, because Neptune is very otherworldly. It's not concerned with the practical. Is this going to happen? How can we make this work? And speaking of that, when I was talking about the energy being in the, I don't know if I mentioned that in this particular reading, but I've been talking about the energy concentrated in the signs of Aquarius and Pisces. And this is also because you have Jupiter. Oh yeah, what am I talking about? There's also Jupiter in Pisces. And with this 11th house, that can be very good for something happy. Maybe it'll be at the 11th hour, pardon the pun, since it's the 11th house, when this all manifests for you. But you have Neptune and Pisces, yeah, and then they are going to form a conjunction in April, I think it is. So we will see in the next forecast all the details of that. And that's supposed to be a rare conjunction. And they are two planets that are very associated with, dreams and, ideals. So I think that can be beautiful. And in the 11th house especially, it can be beautiful. But in the 10th house, in Aquarius, you also have Saturn. And Saturn has been here for a few years. Well, actually about a year and a half or so, something like that. So Saturn is a ruler of the 10th house of career, and it is all about solidifying your place in the world. If you have been kind of feeling a bit adrift, if you feel like you don't have an identity, obviously whatever you do for a living or whatever your career is, your social standing, all the things that we could talk about, these are not you. This is just in this lifetime that you're doing certain things. So you can't, identify with those things permanently and say, yes, this is me. But you can still have your goals that pertain to these things. That's okay as long as you realize that they're not you. And Saturn is a great transit to have through this house because it makes you more serious about doing them. You might say to yourself, it's now or never. Saturn has a 30-year transit through each house, so it certainly isn't that it's never. If let's say you're going through your first Saturn return, you're around 30, you're going to have things come around again 30 years from now. And it's not too much to ask to live to the age of 60. So, yeah, things like that can be going on. And that's another reason why these two houses are really featured right now. So, Mercury in the 11th is you thinking about those things. It'd be a great time to write out what you want and to really think about it. I mean, I always think I have a lot of earth in my chart. So I always think what are the chances? Yeah, I mean, something could happen where somebody could give it to me. If it's money, if it's, some kind of a house. I mean, yeah, I always hold out the possibility that could happen. But apart from that, how could I make this happen on my own? How realistic is it? In what time frame? And just kind of crunching the numbers. On the 18th, we have a full moon at 27 degrees of Virgo, another earth sign, so nice. And by the way, it's in this house of love, the 5th house. This is such a fun house. Now, this is something to do with culmination or the apex of something. It almost makes me think of like somebody who is trying not to fall in love with somebody, and then they can't help it. They just are. So, I mean, if you are somebody who is coupled, then that could pose a problem because you might feel guilty. You might say, I don't want to break up my relationship. But for some people, they may have a hard time denying that they have feelings for someone that are romantic feelings. And, so, these things do happen. And when they do, it makes you reflect upon that marriage or committed partnership. And sometimes you say, I just don't have the same feelings for this person whom I'm actually married to. What do I do about this? And not to say that in all cases you would do the same thing, but I mean, just bringing this out, that this is what the energy looks like for this period of time. This can be finishing an artistic project, conceiving an artistic project. Speaking of that, if you have the full moon in the 5th house and you are of reproductive age, if you're a woman, I mean, a man can impregnate somebody at any time, but if you're a woman, be very careful about that because you might be highly fertile. Other than that, it can be a situation of being highly creatively fertile. On the 20th, we have the astrological new year, the sun going into Aries. For Taurians, this is in the 12th house, which is kind of weird because it's not the first house, or it's not, it's the last house. So it's like, how can I begin a cycle with something in the last house? Well, it's interesting. How you can begin it is by, if you're looking to change something in your life, start something new in the next 12 months. You could start with the intangible angle. So it's almost like preparing the soil for the planting of seeds. And you could really look at that eclipse in your sign as more of the time for that to really take root, so to speak. This astrological new year on the 20th of March plus the new moon in Aries on the 1st of April, these are both in that 12th house. And maybe through visualization, through some other technique that you can imagine what you want, but you're not necessarily expecting to take action today. You do have a particularly fortunate window of time until April 27th, from what I understand, to be able to take more cooperative action when all the personal plants are direct and out of their shadow period. But, it's important to really pay attention to your own natural rhythm as well and what feels right to you. A week from that, we have Mercury going into this area, the 12th house. And that, it's funny because I was thinking visualization, which I associate with Neptune, the ruler of the 12th house and the 12th house. And my partner, we have these, I live in the Chicago area, we have these little libraries. And they might be all over the country. I'm sure. I'm sure we didn't invent them over here, but they have like, free books that people donate, and they have a little thing, little box in front of their house, and then you can go and grab a book. So, since we're both book lovers, that's kind of a dangerous thing to have all scattered around the neighborhoods, because can tempt you to collect a bunch of books that you just let accumulate. But he brought home this book called Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Now, I was familiar with her in the 80s. She had a book, I don't know, around 1985 called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. That was the one I was familiar with. And I had no idea when I looked at this book called Creative Visualization that she published it in the 70s, in the late 70s. And when I was looking through it, it was reminding me so much of what we talk about today with the affirmations. And, I don't know if she mentioned writing it down, but framing it like it's already happening. I'm so grateful for this happening. And this, I don't even I don't even think that she may have come up with it herself. I don't know. It probably was something even before her. But it just surprised me. So, yeah, there are books out there that can help you. I'm sure videos can also help you to kind of prepare the soil for what is to come. Because those eclipses are great change agents, and they can be good things. People always go, "Oh boy, it's going to rock your world." Well, you can rock your world in a good way. Just because it's changed doesn't make it bad, right? Okay, that's what I have for you, Taurus. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a personal reading, I do recommend my deep dive readings, which are more extensive, and they are discounted in price. Buying them like as a twofer, you get them, I think, around $30 off if you bought them separately, something like that, or $25. And but they're like 2 hours in total, and they cover your natal chart plus the transits that are coming up in the next 12 months. Not all of them, but I mean some of the important ones for your specific chart, not as a general reading. And my website is rainandmoonastrology.com. The link is below. Take care. Bye.